Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Sir Jim Ratcliffe identifies his first and only Manchester United transfer target at the moment. We'll also be talking about Casemiro exit talks. Saudi Arabia, apparently this is now a consideration for Casemiro this summer transfer window should Manchester United be looking at it. We'll also talk about day one under Sir Jim Ratcliffe and what it means and what we can expect even later today and over the next few weeks, including sackings of key individuals at the football club and obviously the continuation of people coming in and more importantly what we can expect around transfers, which we're going to start off with the first transfer priority. Also Jadon Sancho's back in the in the story. Look, I don't agree with this sort of stuff really. I mean, I think his last two games for Dortmund he's not played very well. There is an element of comedy to it because there are certain United fans out there that almost like want to sit and do, you know, Sancho love-ins every time he does a good pass for Dortmund to make out that Sancho was the key to United's success and it's Ten Hag who's the failure. I mean, I want Sancho to do well so we can sell him in the summer, but he ain't doing very well at the moment. But it's such a pub league. I'm sure at some point he will. I'm not that concerned that he had a bad game against PSV. The main thing is that he's back playing football, and I'm sure we'll be able to find somewhere for him to go in the summer. But look, lots to get into on the show this morning. We're going to start off with Sir Jim Ratcliffe's one and only Prancer, not Christmas. We're going to start off with Sir Jim Ratcliffe's one and only transfer priority at this moment in time. Now, this is coming in from caught offside Ben Jacobs, who's been on the show in the past. And as this doesn't mean it's going to change, by the way, and Ben even says it himself, but as of now, there is only one transfer target that has been signed off by the club and Ineos and Sir Jim as a player that they're interested in trying to sign in the summer, and that is Michael Olise. So what are your thoughts on that? This is coming in from very good sources, very good information. Doesn't mean we'll get him. Probably will get him. Doesn't mean we won't go and bring other people in. But at this moment, there is only one transfer target in the summer that has been signed off across the board as yes, let's try and sign him. Now, look, if Dan Ashworth comes in, do you think he's going to change his mind about Michael Olise? I don't think he will. I think Michael Olise is exactly the sort of player that Dan Ashworth would try and sign for Newcastle when you look at the wingers that they've bought. Gordon from Everton, Harvey Barnes from Leicester. Michael Olise fits that profile of what Newcastle have been doing anyway. So I think if you are somebody that wants Michael Olise to come in, and just Keevan says, I'm very happy with that. Savage says, I'd rather get Neto. Well, look, I've spoken about that. I think I'd rather go for Neto, but that's not taking anything away from Michael Olise, who I think is a very interesting type of player. But it is interesting that this is a player now that I think we can be very suspicious that this is a player that we're looking at, but I think we can now say this is a hot target, and it is the number one target of Manchester United at the moment, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos agreeing with the club that this is a player that we can go for. One concern I do have is that could this be the summer transfer window we embark on if this ridiculous situation occurs whereby we do get Dan Ashworth, but he doesn't come into the club until after the summer transfer window? Are we going to do this thing where Ineos agree with Murta and, you know, maybe Ashworth a little bit, and then it's like, right, let's try and buy this player like we did last year? I mean, I don't know. I do think Captain Swag's right. I do think Onana of Everton could well become onto the equation as well. But Michael Olise is Manchester United's number one transfer target at the moment. This has been signed off by Sir Jim and Ineos, according to Ben Jacobs. And they expect more players to be added into that list, but this is a player that Man United are going to look at. So look, he's probably going to cost, I think, about 50 million quid. Remember, we had Fabrizio Romano on the show a few weeks ago. I asked him about the Olise release clause. I mentioned £60 million, and he went, no. What I'm hearing is it won't be that much. So we can go down from that. It could be 55. I don't think it would be any less than 50. But it feeds into two things. It feeds into two things of which we've been discussing. One, I don't really understand why you'd spend 55, 50, 60 million pounds on Olise when you've got Garnacho and Rashford. I don't understand that. We're not Manchester City. A story came out last night saying we're not Manchester City. Man City would go and spend £60 million on a winger that's going to sit on their bench. Man City would go and spend £60 million on a striker that's going to sit on their bench, because Man City are the best team in the world that have won the Premier League for the last 3 years, and they're just using their budget to bring in 60, 70, £100 million in the Grealish case, bench players. I don't think, I mean, it could be really exciting, but it could be a big mistake. I don't think we're in a position to spend a large proportion of our transfer budget on a winger that won't start for Manchester United. So that's one of my biggest concerns. And I get it. I get it. People are going to say, yeah, but if we want to be as good as Arsenal, if we want to be as good as Man City, you've got to have a bench that's got good players on it. And I completely agree. But it's almost like you're missing 3 or 4 steps to get to step 6. Are we in a position this summer to spend 50, 60 million pounds on a winger that's going to be on the bench, or Garnacho's going to be on the bench, or Rashford's going to be on the bench, when you haven't got enough right backs, you haven't got enough left backs, you haven't got enough centre backs, you haven't got enough midfielders, and you haven't got enough strikers? That's my point. Why would you spend that amount of money on a winger unless you're moving Garnacho or Rashford on, which I don't think we would do. And look, it could make sense if you saw Rashford as a striker, but I don't. Is it not because Elise will be relegated, so it'll be cheap, says Jake? They're not getting relegated. Crystal Palace aren't getting relegated. Elise is just another wannabe Sancho. Not for me, says Hart. Come on. You can't say that just because he's from London. That's not fair. Come on. I think Elise as a player is really, really interesting. He's very, very creative. He's used to playing in a team where you've got to work hard. I mean, look, Jadon Sancho for Dortmund. If you want to compare Sancho to Dortmund, to Elise, let's just look at it. Jadon Sancho spent his career at Watford. Then he went to Man City, and then he went to Dortmund. And at Dortmund, he played in a team that was better than 85% of the rest of the league. You know, and what I mean by that is lots of possession, lots of attack, right? Michael Elise plays in a team that is worse than 85% of the league. Lots of defending, lots of hard work. So you can say a lot of things about Elise, but you can't really compare him to Sancho because their paths are very, very different. Elise's had to work hard in his career for a team that doesn't have a lot of the ball. It's a harder trajectory. They're very different players. What we need at Manchester United, I agree, is we don't need to bring in players like Sancho, you know, who are not proven in this league, probably had a bit of a comfortable ride in relation to work ethic at Dortmund compared to what it would be like to play for Palace. So I think Michael Elise does tick a lot of the boxes in relation to work rate and talent that United need. We need wingers. What we primarily do need, and I've said this a few times and I'll say it again, even with our current wingers, our wingers are quite selfish. They don't put the ball in to Højlund. That's not their first thought. We even saw it at Luton. Their first thought is to shoot. I don't think they work hard defensively as well. I think they do to a certain point, but let's not pretend our wingers are like Anthony Gordon. Let's not pretend our wingers work like Luis Diaz at Liverpool or Jack Grealish does for Man City. Our wingers do not work anywhere near as hard as other wingers. I've seen Garnacho tracking back, I've seen Anthony tracking back, I've seen Rashford tracking back, but it's nowhere near as hard as wingers at other clubs do. Like, I think because they do a bit of tracking back, people think, well, it's better than nothing. You've got to work. You've got to almost be a fullback as a winger these days. And I think Michael Elise and Neto at Wolves are two players that are well used to that, and we need that because it will bring so much to our team if you've got two wingers that can do the attacking stuff and be more creative, but also do the defensive work rate as well. I think it's really important. But also, of course, I think that the comparison with Sancho would be that this would be the end of the road for Sancho at Manchester United. I don't know how it works when you've got Garnacho, Rashford, you bring Elise in, you're still going to have Anthony, you still got Ahmad. That to me is still too many wingers. And why are you spending 50, 60 million pounds on a winger when you've got 4 other ones? But it's the end of the road for Sancho. Of course it is. I mean, there's no way that you're going to have Rashford, Garnacho, Elise, Ahmad, Anthony, Sancho. That's not going to happen. So this would be the end of the road for Sancho, and quite rightly too. And probably the end of the road for Greenwood as well. I mean, maybe not so definitively with Greenwood, I suppose, because you could play him up front maybe. But yeah, I think it's definitely the end of the road for Sancho. And look, that's the first thing I thought this morning when I read this article from Ben Jacobs, that Sir Jim has signed off Elise and Ineos agree with the Elise, and Man United want to go for Elise, and it's the only target that they've all signed off on at the moment. Doesn't mean we're going to get him, by the way, but I think there is a very good chance we'll get him. But the fact that that's been signed off would mean that we're going to... Sancho's got to be going. And it can only be a good thing for Eric Ten Hag as well. If Man United are looking at Elise and signing off a deal now in February, then that's another positive for Ten Hag, twofold. One, it'll be a player that he's interested in, that they're signing off on. And two, it'll be a player that that he doesn't want at the club anymore in Jadon Sancho, who basically will be seeing the exit door. So, look, Elise for Sancho, it's an upgrade. I never thought I'd be saying that a year ago, but it is an upgrade. And I think that's where we're going to head with this. Really, really do. You could use Aaron Wan-Bissaka in a swap deal, maybe, says Anthony Heath. And Carlos says, would you take Anthony Gordon if you wanted to come to Manchester United, Mark? Yes, I would. I mean, look, I think there's better players than Anthony Gordon out there, but I never really understood. I mean, look, this is we're about to get this director of football. I love this. It's a great little story that I wouldn't be telling you. But so when Anthony Gordon went to Everton, was it January transfer window last year? When he went to Everton for about, was it 45, 50 million quid? I was laughing at it. I was like, what are they doing? What are they doing? I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't think he's that good at Everton. What's this doing? This is stupid from Newcastle. And then 6 months later, I was like, oh, I get it now. And that's a Dan Ashworth signing, by the way. I think Anthony Gordon's been a fantastic signing for Newcastle, and he's exactly the sort of profile that Man United need. I don't know whether I'd want him, but what does Anthony Gordon do for Newcastle? He gets goals, he gets assists, and his work rate and tenacity is incredible. So I don't care whether somebody's called Anthony Gordon, but I want a winger that's got an amazing work rate and tenacity, who can score goals and create goals. They're the three things I want. So yeah, I think that type of a winger is definitely what Manchester United need. Definitely. I just saw somebody in the chat say, and I had seen it before I came live as well, if you're a fan of The Office, Mike Fergus just said, Keith from The Office has died, Mark. I think we'll all be having a Scotch egg at lunchtime, won't we? Rest in peace. Only 50 years of age as well. Fantastic sitcom. Rest in peace to him. Jordan28 says, I think Pedro Neto is the right guy. Well, look, as it stands at the moment, it looks like Manchester United are going to go for Elise. It'd be interesting to see where Neto goes, though, because if Neto goes to Man City, or if Neto goes to Liverpool, or if Neto goes to Arsenal, who gets the better deal? We'll have to wait and see. But look, what has to happen is, and I'm going to repeat this again, every signing we make this summer, they've got to be, and Sir David Brailsford will do this anyway, and I'm sure Dan Ashworth will do it, and I'm sure Barada will do it. We have to change our transfer policy. We've got to understand these players that we're signing. We've got to look at what they're doing in their private lives. We've got to look at what their mentality is like. We've got to look at their consistency. We've got to look at their injuries. We've got to be absolutely detailed in everything. It can't just be YouTube clips of goals and assists or tackles. We've got to go into the background of these players, which is absolutely what the top teams do, and it's something we've not done for 10 years. And if we do that, you will see a massive improvement in Manchester United, because the big thing we've got to improve on is consistency. And consistency comes from injury, consistency being injury-free, consistency comes from mentality, consistency comes from how you look after yourself off the pitch as well. All these things need to be looked out for. I think for too long, United have had a team of inconsistent people, and we need to look at that. Injury prone, says James. Well, look, we'll have to wait and see on that one. I want to talk about Casemiro. I want to talk about a few other things as well, but it is the first official day of Ineos. We had a late night show last night. Well, it was about 9:30, wasn't it? First day of Ineos, what are we expecting? I think there was some rumours going around last week about sackings, and I think the big sacking that people are waiting for is John Murta, which may not happen as soon as you think it's going to happen. But what I think about these sackings is they're all sad. They're all sad. People losing their job. there's going to be people who don't deserve to lose their job. There's going to be people who do deserve to lose their job. And that's not something that's to be celebrated in any situation. It's sad. It's sad. If somebody gets sacked, they've either failed, they're incompetent, they've made a mistake, you're cutting costs. So these sort of things are going to happen. I'll tell you one person that I hope, after a bumpy ride, I hope there is a position for him. But then again, am I being a bit, nepotist, being a bit favoritism here? What's somebody like Darren Fletcher's role under the new regime? Because Darren Fletcher trained with the team, then got a job, and he's had a lot of criticism. But over the last sort of year, we've not really heard anything about Darren Fletcher. And I think that was the problem, wasn't it? Darren Fletcher sat on the touchline when he was like, with no CV. He's become less visible and therefore, less of an issue. But I do look at someone like Darren Fletcher, and I think, you do look at people like Ramsey, who looks like he's going to go as well. Certain people within the fitness department. I think these are people that I'd be looking at and thinking over the next few weeks, are they going to sink or swim? Because I can't remember what Darren Fletcher's role is. Obviously, Ramsey's a specialist set piece person, and we're not specialists at set pieces. So I think he's somebody that you might be jumping before he's pushed. But Darren Fletcher, I'm sure, is he technical director or something like that? Is there a role for somebody like that when you're bringing in the people that you're bringing in? So I think we will see some departures over the next few days and weeks, because I think that's going to be part of this new world under Ineos about what they're going to do. I think we're also going to see very, very soon, as I said last night, I think very, very soon we'll see some sort of interview with key people at Ineos. I don't know whether Barada can do one, because I don't know whether Barada's allowed to do one at the moment. I don't know when Barada actually... answers on a postcard. When does Barada actually start? Is he on gardening leave till the summer? I think he is. But maybe someone like Blanc, Sir David Brailsford, Sir Jim Radcliffe, certainly. I think we'll start to get a few interviews coming out from them, because they've had to stay quiet for a very long period of time. Not just from Christmas, when it was announced they were going to get the club, but also for the last year when they've been competing to buy the club. So I think we've had a few headlines of, I want to make Manchester United great again. I want to make Man United the biggest club in the world again. But I think we'll start. I think there needs to be some sort of definitive PR positivity piece from Sir Jim, where he talks about, I've supported this club all my life. I want to, I think we're going to start to see that sort of stuff as well. Would you swap Rashford for Leao? Says Matt. Well, no. If you give me an easy out, I'll take it. Why would I sit here and say, let's sell Rashford and swap him for Leao and allow myself to get clipped up on a fantasy that will never happen? Now, if you offered me something that was realistic, I might give you a more definitive answer, but I'm never going to say let's swap Rashford for Leao, because it's complete and utter fantasy, and it just leaves me exposed to be, oh, you're a Rashford hater, which I'm not. We would never swap Rashford for Leao, because AC Milan could never pay 350 grand a week, so it will never happen. So no, not for me. Not for me, hot. Does Elise bring us closer to challenging Liverpool, Arsenal and City? And I mean considerably closer. If no, waste of time going after him, in my opinion, says Rory. Look, Elise alone will not make us be title contenders. Absolutely not. That's completely and utterly a fact. But is he an improvement on Jadon Sancho? I think possibly yes. Is he the sort of player that can play for Manchester United consistently? Look, I can go and buy players. You can go and buy players. I like what Harrison says about Kubo or Neto. To me, I would go for either of those players over Elise. But we've heard about a British core. I don't agree with it, but we've heard about this British core that's... And look, maybe that's something that Sir Jim... Look, when Sir Jim gives his interview, what am I interested in? He's not going to tell us we're definitely leaving Old Trafford. He's going to tell us he wants to take us to the back of English football. What I'm interested to know is, are we doing this with the British core, or are we just trying to be the best team in the world? Because I don't have any interest in a British core. I've got no interest in a British core. I mean, look, Branthwaite, Elise, and a British midfielder, or Neto, Todibo, and a foreign midfielder. I'll look at the player. I don't need a British core. Where Man United need to be a bit British is because of the homegrown rule, which is there, and we've got to do that. But I'd be very interested to see whether this is actually part of United's plan to be a British core, because I've never understood it. There is no team in Premier League history that has won the Premier League because of a British core. We've never done it. We've had good British players, but we didn't have a British core. You know, even in '99, there was, you know, Roy Keane's not British, Jaap Stam's not British, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's not British, Peter Schmeichel's not British. You know, it's... I don't think we need a British core. I really don't. But Elise is not. Elise's not British, but we've had this conversation before. If you watch the channel and know the channel, then absolutely fine. I'm not wasting my time talking about people telling me Elise is French, because you're wrong. He's homegrown. We're talking about homegrown. British core means homegrown. If you don't understand that, jog on. We've spoken about this 3 or 4 times already over the last 2 weeks. Michael Elise will be classed as British in the eyes of Manchester United because he's a homegrown player. He is French. That's absolutely fine. But he'll be classed as a homegrown player. The same as Garnacho will. That's what we're talking about here. The British core means homegrown. That's what we're talking about. Good morning, Mark. It's now official that Sir Jim is here. Well, we sat here for years saying we need something different, so let's see what happens. Big up to the United Stand, and we'll be here together for this new era, says Ray. Good morning, Ray. Hope you're doing very well. Sherlock, absolute legend. Thanks for gifting 10 memberships. Get a W in there for Sherlock. And also, Mark, I've been thinking for a long time. I genuinely believe we should try McTominay on the right wing instead of Elise. The short crosses would be fire. Ali, you've just wasted 5 seconds of my life I'm never going to get back. I don't care where players are from as long as they can play. Elise is definitely better than what we have, says Richard Davies. And Tuchel's decided to leave Bayern. Well, he's not the game. He's not the same, is he? He's not the man he was. Dark Moon says that Darren Fletcher in March 2021 became the technical director at Manchester United. Well, yeah, I don't think that. It'd be very interesting to see what they do with somebody like that. Because again, look, I would like Darren Fletcher to keep his job, but is that sentimentality? I mean, why would I like Darren Fletcher to keep his job? Because actually, over the last 18 months, he's faded into the background, and it's not a problem. But do I want Darren Fletcher to keep his job because he used to play for Manchester United? Yeah. Is that a way to run a football club? No. So, to be honest with you, it'd be very interesting to see what United do with things like that. As I said last night, are Ineos here to make real change, or are they here to paper the cracks? We'll be able to figure things out very, very quickly about whether it's hot air and reality, because there are certain players that we know need to go in the summer, that if they're here at the start of next season, it's all hot air. There are certain people in that football club that need to be sacked, and if they're still here next season, it's hot air. Look, Merton needs to go. The fitness department needs renovating. There's certain players in that team that need to go. If they're here next year, Ineos ain't real. It's just propaganda. I think they're real. I think they will make the changes that need to happen, and I think some of it will be ruthless. How much do you think we realistically get for Sancho? He's shit, says Trey. I don't know. Answers on a postcard. I mean, I don't know how much you'd get for Jadon Sancho. He's currently... Well, we paid £75 million for him. We gave him 300 grand a week, which is just unbelievable. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. The fact that the people who signed that deal off are still working at this football club is unbelievable. I mean, if I was Sir Jim, I'd have been in from 6 o'clock and I'd have had 10 people sacked by 7. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. How much do I think we'd get for Jadon Sancho in the current market? As low as 30, if we're lucky. 40. Luty, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. And happy 30 months, Mark, says Sam. Credit to you for the daily content. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you very much for supporting the channel as well. Just another story coming out this morning in relation to Casemiro as well. So Casemiro is apparently seriously considering his future this summer, with Saudi Arabia an option. It was a bit of a funny article because it's completely and utterly inaccurate. In relation to Casemiro, it basically said that his game... I mean, I can't be bothered with this sort of analysis of football because it's just... I'm so grateful for things like this and the ability for people to actually share knowledgeable information based on watching football. I think there are so many journalists and pundits out there who expose themselves. I mean, what's your thoughts on this, actually? I think there's so many journalists and pundits out there who expose themselves as not watching football. You know, they obviously get their paychecks, they obviously put their articles in, but I don't think they watch football, and they expose themselves all the time. So basically, this article says that Casemiro is considering going to Saudi Arabia in the summer. And I think that element of the story is probably true. And then you get the opinion piece, which is the reasons he might be thinking to go is because his game has fallen off a cliff in the last few weeks, and you know, he's clearly not the player he used to be. And I'm like, so what are you basing that on then? Because there's not a lot of difference between Casemiro last year and Casemiro in the last 4 games, apart from probably match fitness. There's not a lot of difference between Casemiro last year and what he was doing for Real Madrid. Like, I don't know where people are talking about this Casemiro's game has fallen off a cliff. Like, he used to be 20% quicker, or he used to be, you know, a better passer. Like, he's just come back from a major injury. We've won 4 games in a row when he started. He was superb against one of the best midfields in the country against Villa a week ago. But suddenly it's like this story's being written by people who just do not have a clue what they're on about, that Casemiro is apparently now running around like an injured McTominay and completely and utterly useless. I suppose it's the agenda movement, isn't it? We see it all the time. You know, these people who want Ten Hag out when we're winning games. These people who think Sancho's the saviour, even though he wouldn't even come to training on time. And now apparently Casemiro's finished. It's hilarious. But I don't see any drop-off in Casemiro's game from last season. I don't see any at all. I see a completely different system that we're playing, but I don't see a drop-off. I really don't. But look, that's not the story we're talking about. This story is talking about how Casemiro is considering going to Saudi in the summer. And I think that this is something that's away from the assessment of the player, and this is something that we've spoken about over the last few weeks. What are Ineos going to do? We hear about sackings, we hear about concerns about money. There's a massive opportunity for them to remove 2 players that are really good players and really professional players and big leaders in the dressing room. Whether you should be getting rid of people of that profile is dubious, but there's Varane and Casemiro, where you can send them off to Saudi Arabia, where they'll probably go, where they'll earn ridiculous money for themselves, but they'll also clear £600,000-700,000 a week from our wage bill, which is what, £3 million a month, which is, you know, around £30 million a year in wages, and you'll probably get a bit of a transfer fee for them. As a cost-cutting exercise to pump money into the club, forgetting how good those players are, that is huge, huge. Absolutely huge. Sugar says he's poor on the ball and passing, and yet he was elite in the second half against Aston Villa last week. Watch more football, mate, and stop being a flip-flop, and stop watching people who don't know what they're talking about. And you're going to say, well, I'll stop watching you then, but I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the agenda press. I'm talking about the agenda content creators who are poisoning your mind with their own reflection of poison. Watch football. Understand football. Casemiro has not fell off a cliff. Casemiro is still a really important player for us. The point I'm making is that we may move him on because it's a pure and utter financial point. I think if Casemiro was on 100 grand a week and Saudi Arabia didn't want to buy him, he wouldn't be going anywhere. I think it's to do with the wage, the age, and the ability to clear it. And I think we've mentioned this before, wage and age is going to be Varane, it's going to be Maguire, it's going to be Casemiro, it's going to be Eriksen. Those 4 players are going to fall into the wage and age category. I mean, Eriksen's on 150 grand a week, Maguire's on 190, and Casemiro and Varane are on about 300k. So we're going to look at those 4 players, all respected senior pros in that football club. Is it a good idea to get rid of those 4 players? Well, if you want to save a load of money, it is. But what's the vacuum of leadership and respect in the dressing room, you know. Varane's won most aerial duels in the Premier League this season and most completed passes with weak foot in the Premier League. You can't let him go. The thing with Varane, Perry, is the injuries. I mean, I saw that stat the other day. He's won more aerial duels than anybody this season in the Premier League. Anybody. Van Dijk, Tarkowski, Harry Maguire. He's won more aerial duels than anybody. I don't think people appreciate how good Varane is in the air. But the problem with Varane is he can't play 2 games a week. How is Eriksen on so much money, says PJ? Because we've got him on a free transfer, mate. So, you know, what do United do to get a player to come? Big money. Benson says, can Ineos employ Ashworth for time being and then ease him into the directorial role to bypass for FFP? This way he can have a direct impact from day one. No, Benson, the contract that Newcastle have got will be very, very, very definitive on that. Robocop says, is Sir Jim still an enemy of the club? Mate, instead of being a troublemaker, why don't you go and watch the show last night and educate yourself? No one's going to give you any time or steam on that. Casemiro really fell off again since last season, says Gary. No, he didn't. If Casemiro sneezes in a game, he will be booked by endangering fellow players, says PC Master. And if Varane will resign anywhere from 150 to 200k a week, I'm giving him another year. Look, Chris, here's a great point, actually, Chris, who's one of our members. If you're Rafael Varane and you're on 300k a week, and you know you can't play 2 games a week in the Premier League, and United say we'll give you another year, but it will be on 150 grand a week. So we'll give you a 50% paid reduction to sign another contract. And then Saudi Arabia go, we'll give you a 50% pay rise. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Come on. I think Varane's gone. Look, I've said this for a few weeks. Let's see if I'm right. Rafael Varane is going to be David De Gea this year. He's this year's De Gea. It's a player we probably shouldn't be getting rid of, who we're running his contract down to let him go for nothing so we can save on wage. And I'm absolutely convinced that that's what we're going to do. Varane will go in the summer like De Gea did for nothing. And to be honest, it's not good business. It's not good business. Have we got good business out of Varane? We've had him for... When did Varane come? He came under Ollie. So we've had him for 3 years. We spent 40 million quid on him. We paid him 300 grand a week, and he's walking out the door for nothing at 31. Absolutely ridiculous. There's a resale value there. There's a resale value there for Varane. And again, we're just letting somebody walk out the door for nothing. Perry says, people like Varane and Casemiro are going to be so important for the young players coming into the team. I think we need at least another year out of them both, says Perry. Well, look. Here's something for you, though. So Ineos walk in and they go, we'll get rid of Casemiro and Varane, but we'll keep Maguire and Eriksen for experience. Going back to what Rory said, are we closer to Man City or further away by removing Varane and Casemiro, but keeping Maguire and Eriksen so we get some experience? Well, Casemiro and Varane are better than Maguire and Eriksen. So, you know, we're weakening our team to keep the wrong players as experience. But personally, I'd keep Casemiro. Out of all those 4 people, I'd keep Casemiro. I think he's got the most experience. Perry Smith says, people like Varane and Casemiro are going to be so important. I've done that one from Perry. Thank you very much. And I've done that one from Trey as well. I wanted to circle back into Jadon Sancho because there's been a lot of people talking about Sancho last night because he had a bad performance against PSV. I really sort of want to double down on this. I mean, if you want Sancho to go, then we need him to play well for Dortmund, and I'm sure he will play for Dortmund quite well at some point. But it's not. There is a toxic minority who are obsessed with Jadon Sancho. Like, oh, Sancho's the victim. Sancho's been treated badly. We need a redemption arc for Sancho. We need Ten Hag to get sacked. We need Sancho to come back and save us. And I'm like, these idiots who profess to be Man United fans are just clueless. They're absolutely clueless. They don't live in the real world. I want Sancho to do well at Dortmund. I don't want him to come back to Manchester United. His lateness and lack of professionalism is not exclusively to Ten Hag. You know, as Matic revealed and other people have revealed, this was going on since he first came to the club. He's had his opportunity at the club, and we can't afford any more red flags. We've got to move him on. there can't be a redemption arc. There can't be a return. It's too risky. It's not good for him. It's not good for anybody else. And also, I think he wants to leave Manchester United, which is a big consideration. So, I think Wan-Bissaka wants to leave Manchester United as well. I think Wan-Bissaka wants to go. I think Sancho wants to go. I'd imagine Donny's desperate to go. Martial wants to go. I'd imagine Christian Eriksen's getting to the point where he wants to go as well. So we have to consider this. It's not just about these people championing these players saying, oh, I want them to stay, I want them to stay. I actually think some of them want to go. So that's something that's really important to consider over the coming weeks and months, is that some of these players will actually want to go. And we need to move them on. We need to move them on. I can't stand Player FC. I can't stand delusion. And I mean, it's just... We talk about it quite a lot, but it is prominent in football at the moment, where you do get fans of your football club who I don't really think are fans of the football club. They look miserable on social media when we win games. You can see them on there. You know, when I finish my match reaction and I go on Twitter and I'm looking at stuff, I'll see certain accounts miserable. Well, we might have won 4 games in a row, but we're so lucky. It's just luck. The luck's going to run out at some point. It's disgusting the way that we're playing football. Like, they're not fans of the football club. They're fans of being proven right about whatever agenda they've got. And the Sancho one is just incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, this is a guy that if he'd apologised, could have been playing for us when we were shit. Like, could have had a big impact in the autumn, but didn't apologise. And then these people go, why should he apologise? Why should he apologise? I've got his back. Why should he apologise to a manager that's disrespected him? Because if Sancho respected you, he'd apologise and put the shirt on because he cares about the club, and he didn't do it. And yet you're championing him above the club. Ridiculous. What a ridiculous mentality to have. But look, it exists. I suppose in a way you have to respect it, but it does exist. Player FC exists. It's toxic. It's damaging. But we need to remove that. And the reason I mention that is because Ineos need to be wide awake to this. And if they don't, then they are just a plaster on an open wound. And I expect them to make big changes. JSD says, if Rashi goes, would you get Neto and Elise? No. I don't. JSD, to be honest with you, I don't really understand why you'd go and sign a 50, 60 million pound winger when you've got Rashford and Garnacho anyway, because you're still going to have Anthony and you're still going to have Ahmad. So we've got 4 wingers, and who knows what's coming through from the youth setup. I mean, there are some really interesting wide players, attacking players coming through the youth setup that are going to be 17, 18 very soon. And Garnacho started playing at 18. So we have got some young players coming through that really I think are going to be ready to be given a chance in the next 18 months. So if you sign Elise and Neto, I would argue, why are we buying a winger? Does Sancho even need replacing? You know, you've got Rashford, Garnacho, you've got Anthony, you've got Ahmad. Look, people will say Anthony's rubbish, but he's not going in the summer. Like, you're not going to get rid of an £80 million player after 2 years. We're going to have to stick with him for another year. That's just the way it's going to work. But even if you did get rid of him, I still think there are players that are going to come through as well. So I'm excited to see what we're going to do with the wing, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend that amount of money from a budget that we know is going to be small on another winger. Mark, I promise you Weghorst was much better than Højlund and Sancho because he was more of a defensive striker and helped defend from the top. Ali, that's your second load of shit comment you've come out with. And if Rashford goes, would you get Neto and Elise? Can Varane be kept to play the crucial games, says Kiz? If you are a footballer for Manchester United, and we could loan Anthony out as he is, you're right, we could loan him out. You cannot have a situation where Rafael Varane plays against Wolves and then doesn't play against West Ham. And that's what happened. You know, we beat Wolves, we played really well, but then he didn't play against the West Ham side because he can't play 2 games in a week. And one of the last remaining legacy of football partnerships is the centre-back partnership. There's no partnership up front anymore. There's no Shearer and Sheringham. There's no Cole and York. That doesn't work anymore. Nobody does that. Midfields, you don't play midfield 2 anymore. It's normally midfield 3. So the only partnership in football that still exists is the centre-back partnership. And it's important. We've seen it with Martinez and Varane. We've seen it with Rio and Vidic. We've seen it with Bruce and Pallister. We've seen it with Stam and Johnson. Like, there are partnerships, Terry and Carvalho, Varane and Ramos. You can't build partnerships if one of them is not going to be playing every other game. And the fitness is the big problem with Varane. Sancho needs to join Lingard, says Anthony Murray. And Acid23 says, I'm not sure it's player FC all the time. Like Ahmad and Palestri, we see things they do and deserve a chance over others who offer nothing, says Acid. Well, I disagree with that. I do disagree with that, because I think the Ahmad obsession at the moment is slightly nauseating. I like Ahmad. He will get his chance. If Ten Hag didn't rate him, he could have loaned him. He didn't loan him because he rates him, but Ahmad's got to wait for his chance. His chance is not going to come in a team that's won 4 Premier League games in a row, and he's certainly not going to throw Ahmad on into the last 20 minutes of a game against Luton where we're defending. So I completely understand, and I'm excited to see Ahmad get some minutes, but I don't think the opportunity's presented itself at the moment because we're playing cup finals. It's difficult to see where Ahmad will get opportunities, but I would imagine if we were like 3-0 up against Fulham with half an hour to go, you'd get Ahmad on. But he's just going to have to be patient. But unfortunately, some of our fans aren't patient. They're like, why is Ahmad not coming on in a game that's really tight, that if we don't win it, we won't get top 4? Like, it's cup final football that we're playing, and Ahmad's just got fit at the wrong time. I think if he'd been fit at the start of the season, there was Champions League games, there was Carabao Cup games, there was early FA Cup games, I think Ahmad would have had his chance, but the injury has... Look, there's no doubt in my mind, basically, that Ten Hag likes Ahmad because he would have loaned him, and I think he wants him around the first team. He wants to use him, but it's difficult for him to use him at the moment because every game has become a cup final, and integrating Ahmad into the team isn't as easy as it would have been if he'd been fit for the start of the season, if you know what I mean. So I'm not worried about I'm not worried about Ahmad. I think he will get his chance. I think we just need to be patient about it. Glenn says 3-0 up, must really rate him. But the thing is, like, it's a bit like the West Ham scenario, isn't it? West Ham fans want to get rid of David Moyes and they want to play better football. You bring someone in who plays better football and they're in the bottom half of the league because they haven't got the players to do it. Oh, well, we should have just stuck with what we've got. People want Ahmad in the team when the team's not broken. We're winning games and we've got back into a top 4 race and you're moaning about Ahmad. It's a weird mentality. We're winning games of football and you want Ahmad to come into the team. So Ten Hag picks Ahmad against Fulham, doesn't have a good game, loses the left back, whips a cross in, and we lose 1-0. Shouldn't have picked Ahmad. Yeah, we should have stuck with the winning team. And this is what I mean. I get confused by obsessions about players that actually patience is going to be the most important thing. Oh, let's put Ahmad in the team and then we lose. What good does that do to Ahmad and what good does that do to the team? Far better to bring him into a situation where you can gradually integrate him and build his confidence. But it's the flip-flop nature of football fans, isn't it? They're not patient. They want it to happen now. Ahmad must be coming on now. Even though we're playing defensive and we're holding on against Luton, let's bring Ahmad on now because he'll get the ball in his own half. He'll skip past 6 players and he'll get down on his hands and knees and he'll roll it over the net and we'll win 6-0. It's like, just be patient. It will happen. People are trying to build a narrative that's just not there. Ten Hag clearly didn't rate Palistri. I did. He didn't. It was very, very evident that he didn't rate Palistri and he's got rid of him again. With Ahmad, he clearly does rate him. And look, who knows what's going on in training every day? For Ten Hag, what was going on what was coming out in pre-season was that Ten Hag really liked Ahmad and wanted to use him. And Ahmad got injured on pre-season and he didn't come back till January. Another inexplicably long injury that impacted a player that we forget. Ahmad in pre-season was going to get his opportunity, got injured, didn't come back till January. So it's only February now and people are like demanding that he starts at a time where we need to get results. Look, Fulham at the weekend, I don't really care how we do it. We just got to win. Casemiro and Varane are our best players and we should be keeping them for at least some more time. What I read about them in English media is unfortunate but not surprising, says Karan there. Thank you very much. Just some other news coming out. So David Brailsford is looking to appoint another executive primarily to cover recruiting. Julian Ward figured prominently in the discussions. Ward is cautious about his next choice and values the scope of the role. So Manchester United going top heavy on executives again. Also, Mike McGrath, who writes for the Daily Telegraph, is saying that Manchester United could miss out on signing Michael Olise, as Juventus are ready to offer highly rated starlet Matthias Sule to Palace in exchange for Olise. And look, Olise may well fancy a Juventus move, but I don't necessarily think that will be the case. And also, Manchester United had a proposal from Saudi Arabia for Casemiro last summer for an amount very similar to one they paid Real Madrid, around 70 million euros. A retirement in Saudi is on the mind of Casemiro, and the player remains open ahead of the summer. And look, as I say, we're really looking at this Casemiro deal, I believe, in the way of finance. To me, it's a silly thing to do, but financially, it could be a massive thing to do. And in some ways, it's not dissimilar. Well, it is, and it isn't. But in some ways, it's not dissimilar to the. It looks more and more to me like it's a financial situation. Mark Wyatt says nobody's talking about Nice and Luzon for player development and loans. Well, we will do that, Mark. I think it's a very good point. I mean, Todibo will come to Manchester United. Some people talk about the midfielder, Thuram. I'm not too convinced about him. The fact that Liverpool turned their nose up at him makes me think that United should be avoiding that deal. But I think that Ali's come up with another cracker. Should we sign Van Dijk for centre attacking midfield? Ali, 3 strikes and you're out. You know, you're just ruining the momentum with your stupidity. But look, with Nice and Luzon, there will be players coming in from there. Man City have been doing this for a while now. They've got Girona in Spain. This is the modern way of football. I mean, I say the modern way. It's been going. We used to have Royal Antwerp, didn't we, in Belgium, that we used as well. I remember. What was his name? Walwork. Can you remember him? There was a couple of players that went to Antwerp on loan. So feeder clubs, whatever you want to try, or whatever you want to call it, but that's something that United will certainly look at, definitely. Should we put a 50 million bid in for Longstaff, Mark, says Chris? Okay, it's getting a bit silly, isn't it now? Okay, right. Thanks everyone for watching. Tonight's show will be at 7 o'clock again because, of course, we've got the Champions League is on again, so keep an eye out for that. We've got a 2 o'clock show for you as well. More importantly, I would keep your eye out today because I suspect we will get more stuff dropping in relation to Manchester United and this Ineos deal. I mean, it's hard to say what will drop, to be honest, because I don't really know what they can say other than I'm here to make things great again, but we will get those sound bites, I'm sure. And don't forget the podcast as well. You can scan that QR code on your way out and go and give it a listen. Goldbridge Saves Football podcast. Really good bit about United in the first 10 minutes. Also ranking the best 5 Premier League managers ever. Was a really good heated debate there. Pratt of the Week, Rio, is up for that. Check out why. Scan the QR code and listen to the podcast while you're out and about. That would be great. And